You think you authored your character. You are mostly its audience. Almost 100 years ago, Carl Jung bound the most dangerous book about the shadow mind in red leather and locked it in a vault. Unsure the writer had come all the way back. He calls the method active imagination, going down on purpose, and one thing decided whether he returned. You know, the thin floor under the steady self, the one that drowns the unforgivable thought before it is heard. What lives down there has a shape, and Jung drew it. 5 things he found in the dark, each heavier than the last. That the self you trust is a part you learn to play. That the only road through it leads down. That the dark answers when you speak to it. That it can keep you. And that the few who climb back out do not climb back as gods. The Red Book is the most exact map ever made of what you are underneath. And reading it closely is how careful people lose the floor for good. Jung spent years on the edge between the century's deepest insight and a complete breakdown. One thing held him there. By the end, you will know its name. In the autumn of 1913, the world Carl Jung had built for himself came apart. His friendship with Freud had ended in something closer to grief than to disagreement, and it left him alone in a way that has no bottom. Then the visions began. On an ordinary afternoon, he was seized by an image of a monstrous flood rolling over the low countries of Europe, the water rising yellow and thick, carrying the rubble of cities and the bodies of the drowned, and where it broke against the mountains, it turned to blood. He believed he was losing his mind. Any reasonable person would have fought an image like that and waited for it to pass. He did the opposite. He sat down in his study, lowered the lights inside himself on purpose, and walked back into the flood to see where it went. He calls the practice active imagination, and what it asks is simple and terrifying. You stop defending the border between waking and dreaming, and you let the figures on the far side come through and speak. Night after night, he went down. He wrote what he found in a book he bound by hand in red leather, in a careful medieval script, with paintings of things that have no business holding a shape. And when it was finished, he did not show it to the world. He hid it. It sat in a Zurich bank vault for almost half a century, because the people who loved him understood that the man who climbed back up was carrying something that could not be safely set down. This is the thing to keep hold of as we go. Every account of the mind written before this one was written from the shore, by people watching the water and describing the waves. Jung wrote from inside the water. The Red Book is a report from someone who went under and kept taking notes. There's a detail in the timing he never quite got over. The flood vision came to him in the autumn, months before the first guns of the war that would drown those same low countries in real blood. He had read it as a private catastrophe, a sign his own mind was failing. Then the world arranged itself into the same shape. The paintings in the Red Book carry that doubled terror. There are cities burning under a calm sky and a serpent looped around the rim of the world, each a record of what a mind looks like with the floor removed. There is a woman I want you to carry with us while we descend, because the vault in Zurich is not the only one. Call her 54 years old, the person who has spent her whole working life making sure every room she enters stays comfortable. She is the one who softens the email before anyone else has to read it, who absorbs the tension in the meeting so no one else has to feel it. Tonight, she is at her desk in the dark, writing a message to her grown daughter. She types exactly what she means. Then she reads it back, and her hand drifts to the delete key, and she writes the gentler version, the one that keeps the peace. The honest draft is gone before it ever quite existed. She has a vault too. She's been filing her true sentences in it for 30 years, and lately the lock has started to slip. But the first thing Jung found when he went down contradicts everything you believe about the person doing the filing. The word persona is older than psychology. In the Latin theater, it was the carved face an actor lifted so the back rows could tell which character was speaking. Jung takes that word and turns it on you. What you experience as your conscience, your values, the steady eye that signs your name to your choices. is the face you hold up so the room can read who you are. It is an interface. Like every interface, it sits over something it was built to hide. The work begins, therefore, with a recognition that does not flatter. The character you trust was assembled. You absorbed it from the house you grew up in, from the people whose approval you could not survive without, from the slow pressure of being a small person in a world run by adults whose moods you had to forecast. You learned which version of yourself kept you safe, and you performed it until the performance went quiet and started to feel like a soul. The persona is a part you have played so long the script reads like memory. Our woman finds this out at her desk. She is on the 4th pass of the email now, sanding down the one sentence that had a spine in it, and somewhere around the 3rd deletion, her hands begin to shake. Her daughter has nothing to do with it. What shakes her hands is the sudden vertiginous sense that she has been doing this her whole life. That the agreeable, accommodating person everyone leans on was built decision by decision out of 30 years of small surrenders, and that she cannot remember choosing one of them. The apartment is quiet. The quiet feels foreign because for the first time, the woman who keeps the room comfortable is not in the room. This is where the descent begins, and hers is gentler than Jung's and exactly the same kind. Once the face slips even a little, you start to meet what it was holding up, and that is where this turns dangerous. Jung walked a line where a mind can come apart at the seam, and a single thread is the only reason he did not. But the reflex, the instant the face slips, is to reach up and repair it. To understand why that reflex is a trap, we have to follow him further down. The world you live in has a standard prescription for the shadow. Rise above it. Think positive thoughts. Manage the dark feeling until it stops bothering you, and swap the bad thought for a better one. Jung watches this approach and sees exactly why it fails, and the reason is almost physical. What you refuse to look at stays, and it goes underground, and underground it gathers charge. The polite man, who has never once admitted to his anger, is a sealed container with the pressure climbing, and one unremarkable afternoon the seal gives. The only honest direction, then, is the one every instinct refuses: down, toward the material, not away from it. Jung went back into the flood deliberately, re-entered the visions that terrified him, sat with the figures that frightened him, and let them finish their sentences. He understood the shadow as something with its own weight and its own logic, an exile that has been running the house from the basement precisely because it was never allowed upstairs. There is one way to disarm a thing like that. You go down the stairs and you turn on the light. This is the cost the comfortable version of the story always leaves out. The descent has nothing tidy in it. In Jung's own years of it, it felt like a long darkening, a cold, heavy season with no visible bottom. The kind of stretch where the false self you spent decades building is quietly stripped of everything that made it convincing. The old students of this work had a name for the first stage: the blackening. He stayed close enough to the shadow to learn its face, and far enough away to keep his own. That distance is the entire art, and it is far thinner than it sounds. There is a distinction here worth holding, because the descent and a plain breakdown can look identical from the outside and are not the same event. A breakdown is the floor giving way under someone who never chose to go down and has nothing to hold. A descent is the same territory entered deliberately, with both eyes open and an ordinary life waiting upstairs. Jung kept his appointment book open the entire time he was under, and that plain rhythm was doing quiet, load-bearing work. The depth is identical in both cases. What differs is whether anything up top is still expecting you home. Our woman knows this season without the words for it. The honest drafts she has been deleting for 30 years did not disappear. They have been collecting just under the surface of her capable life, and lately they arrive uninvited, a sentence at a time, carrying an edge she does not recognize as her own. But when Jung went down those stairs and turned on the light, he found the basement was not empty. Something down there looked back. Then it spoke. This is the part of the Red Book that still unsettles the people who read it closely, because it crosses a line the modern mind would rather keep shut. When Jung went down, he found a populated country, figures who were not him, who knew things he did not know, who argued with him, corrected him, and refused to say what he wanted them to say. The unconscious, he discovered, was inhabited. The one who matters most arrived with the wings of a kingfisher and the name Philemon. An old man, calm, ancient, walking through the visions as though he owned them. Jung painted him more than once, robed with the horns of a bull set above that calm old face, a figure assembled from older mythologies than any single mind could hold. The strangeness of the face mattered less than the strangeness of what came out of it. Philemon would say things in the visions that Jung did not know and had never thought, and Jung would later find some of them confirmed in books he had never opened, as though a part of his own mind held a key to a library the rest of him had never been allowed to enter. And Philemon taught Jung the single idea that reorganizes everything around it. Jung had assumed, exactly as you assume right now, that his thoughts were his, manufactured by him, the private output of the one mind he was certain he owned. Philemon showed him otherwise. A thought lands in you the way a bird lands in a garden, out of its own sky, on its own schedule. You happen to be the place it chose, and you flatter yourself by calling it yours. Sit with what that opens, because it is the hinge the whole book turns on. If a figure inside your own mind can know more than you do, if parts of you can move with a will that is not under your command, then the sovereign, in control self you have defended your entire life is partly a story you tell yourself to keep from panicking. The collective unconscious answers to no one, you least of all. On its bad days, it moves through you like weather, and you call the weather a mood and go on believing you are the only one home. You already know this experience, even without a name for it. The conviction that arrives whole and certain, with no argument attached, and proves right months later. The song that loops all day with no music playing. The dream that hands you the answer your waking mind had chased for weeks. We file these under coincidence and mood and move on, and each one is ordinary traffic from a country you live in without a map. Small proof of something older and stronger than the daylight self that believes it runs the place. Our woman has met her Philemon, though she would never reach for the word. For months there has been a second voice in her, quiet and level and unimpressed, that watches her smooth the email and observes, without heat, that she is spending her one life keeping other people comfortable. She cannot tell if this is a breakdown or a breakthrough. She has no one to ask, because the only language the people around her have for a second voice is the language of illness. So she stands at the sink in the dark, listening to something inside her own head that is plainly wiser than she is, and she is afraid. She is right to be, because this is the question Jung lived in genuine terror of. What happens when one of those figures is stronger than you are, and the way back up closes behind you? A figure that knows more than you is a teacher, so long as you stay the one asking the questions. The danger begins the moment it stops answering to you and starts answering for you. That is the fourth law, and it is the one he warned about most. A question before we follow the danger down. If you have ever typed the true sentence and deleted it for the safe one, you already know this second voice. Put the line you keep deleting in the comments. You can write it just like this. The truest thing I think, I delete. This is the movement the gentle retellings always skip, and it is the reason the book went into a vault instead of a bookshop. Jung is blunt about it. The forces you meet down there can take a person and never give them back. The going down is survivable. Failing to surface is the part that kills, and it is so seductive that the ones it takes usually mistake it for success. It works like this. The ego, the small daylight self that says I and means it, stands in front of these vast old figures and feels something intoxicating. Recognition. A sense of having been let all the way in. In that moment, it does the fatal thing. It stops standing beside the great figure and steps inside it, It stops hearing the voice of the deep as a voice and starts hearing it as its own genius, its own divinity, its own private line to the truth. Jung has a name for this: inflation. The small self swells until it fills the whole sky, and the person mistakes the crown for their own head. Jung has an older name for the figure a person becomes here: the monopersonality, after the word older cultures used for the charged power that clung to a chief or a healer. The descent does hand you real contact with something vast, and the inflated ego makes one catastrophic error with it. It mistakes having heard the oracle for being the oracle. The tell is always the same, in the guru and in the quiet man at the dinner party alike. The one who went down to listen comes back able only to pronounce. You have seen the mild version in 100 rooms, the person whose hard year became the only thing they have left to say, the one who found the right framework and now runs every conversation through it, who cannot take in a plain remark without converting it into the system. From the inside, inflation feels like a rival. The cruelty of it is that the language of depth, the very words moving through this video, make the most convenient hiding place a frightened ego ever found. The deep is gentlest with the ones who keep something small and human in their hands, and merciless with the ones who let it do all of their talking. Jung reads Friedrich Nietzsche this way: as a man the depths took, a philosopher who walked into the same country with a rarer gift than almost anyone alive, met the great figure he called Zarathustra, and let it become his name. The line between the visionary and the casualty came down to one thing: whether the small daylight self could survive being made small again. Our woman is standing exactly here without knowing the place has a name. The second voice has shown her how much of her life was performance, and there is a version of what comes next, where she stops listening to that voice and becomes it. She could let it write everything from now on, every message to her daughter, every reply at work, each one landing finished and final, because the quiet level voice is so plainly right and she is so tired of being the one who softens. That is the swallowing, and it looks nothing like going hard. The woman who fills the kettle would go quiet for good, and the voice would keep her name and her hands and speak through both. From the inside, it would feel like finally becoming real. So what let Jung climb back out, when by every law of that place he should have stayed down? The answer is so ordinary that it disappoints people, and the disappointment is the point. Jung climbed back out because he never let go of his ordinary life. The whole time he was descending into the most extreme territory a mind can enter, he kept seeing patients in the morning. He kept his marriage, his children, his quarrels, his meals. And on the lake at Bollingen, he built a small stone tower with his own hands, no electricity, no running water, and he spent his winters there carving figures into rock, cooking over a fire, keeping his fingers in real dirt. A vision arrives in a flood and asks for nothing. A wall takes years and asks for your hands, your patience, your willingness to be a small man doing slow work in the cold. The tower was his standing argument against his own inflation, renewed every winter. That is the thread. That is the single thing that decided which way he fell. Picture the descent as a dive into deep water with a line tied to the surface. A diver drowns when the line is lost, and the deep itself can be survived. The figures, the visions, the enormous intelligence of the deep, none of it could keep Jung, because some part of him stayed tied to a wife waiting upstairs, a patient at 9, a stone that needed carving. He refused, the entire way down, to believe he had stopped being an ordinary man. The people the depths keep are the ones who cut the line on purpose, because the surface began to look small and the deep made them feel like more than human. And there is nothing down there that loves anything more than a person who would rather be a god than go home for dinner. This is the law underneath all the others, and it turns over the reason people open a book like this in the first place. They come for ascent. Jung offers descent and return. Goodness asks you to amputate the dark and keep the light. Wholeness asks you to house both, to hold the civilized self and the buried self in one body, without letting either one silence the other. The shadow stays alive, the figures stay where they are, and he gives them a room. A whole person is a wide one, with space for the part that keeps the email gentle and the part that wrote the honest draft. Both of them home, neither of them king. The way down is open to anyone. The way back belongs to the ones who kept hold of the line. Housing the shadow looks like almost nothing from the outside. There is no glow to it, no serene face, no badge of someone who has been to the bottom and returned. It looks like a person who has stopped pretending the basement is empty and has made room. The angry sentence gets felt, then chosen or set down on purpose instead of deleted in a panic. Wholeness costs more than goodness ever asked. It makes a poor photograph, and it is the only version of this that lets a person come all the way back up. And so, our woman. It is early before anyone else is awake. She is at her desk again, and she writes the honest message to her daughter. The true one, the one with the spine in it. She reads it back. For 30 years, the next move has been the delete key, the gentle rewrite, the true sentence filed away in the vault. There is also a newer move that has been tempting her lately, the cold one, the send button pressed like a verdict. She does neither this time. She saves the draft, closes the laptop, and fills the kettle, standing in the pale early light while she waits for the water. The woman waiting is the whole of her now, the one who keeps the peace and the one who tells the truth, finally in the same body, neither of them running the house alone. The thread is tied. The coffee is ordinary. She's been all the way down, and she has come home for breakfast. Step back, and the 5 laws collapse into one. Under the face, you show the room there is an ocean. The only way across the ocean runs down through it. The water is alive and it speaks. It can take you and keep you. And the only ones who surface again are the ones who never once mistook the depths for a throne. 5 angles. 1 truth. This is why the book went into a Swiss vault and stayed there for almost half a century. The book works. It is an accurate working map of how to take a human mind apart and walk around inside it. And a map of that country is a weapon in an inflated hand. Jung understood what he had made. He understood that the same instructions that let a person become whole could let a frightened ego crown itself instead, and that nothing in the book prevents the second reading. And that is the danger the title points at, quieter than the word dangerous makes it sound. The book showing you the darkness was always the easy part. The hard part is how good the darkness can make a frightened person feel about themselves, and how willingly that person will trade an ordinary morning, a kettle, a difficult daughter, an entire life, for the feeling of being someone who has seen what the sleepers cannot. You do not have to go looking for the territory the Red Book describes. You already are the territory. The ocean is under your floor, whether or not you ever name it, and the figures are already overhead, whether or not you have heard them land. The only real question the book leaves on the table is the one it asked of Jung. When you go down, and at some point you will there be a line tied to the surface? Will there be a kettle, a patient at 9, a stone that needs carving, an ordinary morning that wants you back? Or will you cut the line because the depths made you feel like more than a person, and call the drowning by the name of enlightenment? If this unsettled you more than it comforted you, that is the correct response, and it is the reason you are here instead of somewhere easier. The discomfort means the floor is thinner than you were told, and that some part of you already suspected as much. Keep a line to the surface. Before you go, name yours. The one ordinary thing that would pull you back up, a kettle, a person who waits, the work that needs your hands. Put it in the comments like this. My line to the surface is. Then ask whether it would hold the day the deep starts to feel like home.
Empaths aren't broken, they're alchemists in progress. The Alchemist's Path gives you drills, Jung-based boundaries, and 3 exclusive chapter videos to turn overwhelm into clarity. By Surreal Mind, 236-page downloadable ebook in stock. Begin now at thesurrealmind.com.